finding that comfortable seat, whatever it looks like for you. As we arrive here on our mat today, I invite you to close your eyes and start to move inward into this journey into your center, finding your stillness, noticing your breath, noticing the body, and starting to deepen your breath. So, really taking that breath down into baby as deeply as you can. As baby grows, it's going to be harder to breathe into the belly. And just noticing as you take those deep, full breaths, looking for space with your breath. Allow the shoulders to soften with every exhale. And noticing this three-dimensional breath. So with each inhale, the right side moves away from the left side. The front side of the body begins to expand away from the back. Notice the sit bones rooting into the earth. And maybe with your next inhale, finding a little bit more length through the spine. And really pay attention to this breath. So noticing how the breath feels, how smooth this breath is. Drawing each breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Invite the mind to settle onto the breath, leaving anything else that might be worrying you or those to-do lists, leaving them outside of the door for just 1 hour. Making these oceanic sound waves with your breath. Take 3 more breaths here as we prepare the body to move. You can open your eyes or keep your gaze soft in front of you. Begin to stretch your arms around and up with your inhale, allowing the shoulders to be soft and away from the ears. And exhale, hands down to your heart center. Taking the entire breath to move, reaching the arms around and up, feeling that length on both sides of the body. And exhale, hands together in front of your heart. One more time, reaching up. And then exhale the left hand down to the earth and find a side bend here. Your gaze can stay forward. It can look up toward the ceiling or the sky. And it can look down toward the earth, whatever feels best for your neck. Keeping both sit bones rooted evenly, breathing into this space on the right side of the body. Feeling that nice opening stretch all the way from the hip to the fingertip. Take one more expansive breath into the side body. And then inhale to come back up to center. Both hands reach up. And then exhale to take the right hand down to the earth as you hinge over in the opposite direction. Beautiful. Breathing deeply here. Feel your breath moving in between the ribs on the left side. Again, you can take your gaze in whatever direction feels best for you. Can you soften in the shoulders a little bit? And with your next inhale, coming back up to center. Interlace your fingers when you get there and turn the palms up toward the ceiling and just start to find whatever movement feels good. Maybe you take some circles into the belly. Maybe you make the spine like a cat and a cow. Maybe you continue that movement from side to side. There's no right or wrong here. We're just listening to the body. Continue those deep breaths with your movement, finding your own rhythm. Take just 2 more breaths. As you come to the end of that second breath, you can release the hands and reach the hands forward. So taking a nice gentle forward fold here, pressing into the earth, pressing the hips back, feeling that nice stretch into the hips and the low back. You can move from side to side if that feels good. And then eventually coming onto your hands and your knees into a tabletop position. In this tabletop position, the hands or the wrists are stacked right underneath the shoulders, knees right underneath the hips. You can tuck your toes to give you a little bit more of that stability. And with your inhale, lift the tailbone up toward the ceiling and exhale to round the tailbone towards your heels. Take the entire breath to move. So allowing that movement to follow the breath. Inhale, the tailbone lifts up. And exhale to round the tailbone back. Continue this with your own perfect breath pace, the pelvic tilts. Moving here with intention and attention, which means noticing, even in these subtle movements, how the body responds. Take one more full round of breath. And coming back to that neutral spine, the pelvis in a neutral position. Stretch your right leg back behind you. Keep the toes on the ground, pressing through the heel. Keep the crown of the head moving forward, feeling a nice lengthening stretch all the way from the foot to the crown of the head. Breathing up the length of the leg. Keep pressing back through the heel. Breath following the spine. With your next exhale, bring that right knee back in to meet the left. And we'll take the other side, stretching the left leg back behind you. Toes stay on the ground, heel presses back. With your breath, feel as if that breath is creating more space, more length through the body, reaching the crown of your head forward, keeping the weight into the fingertips to take a little bit of pressure off of your wrists. Smooth, deep breaths here. Take one more big breath in. And exhale to bring your left knee back to meet the right. Sit back onto your heels, coming into a hero's-like position, and we'll stretch the wrists out a little bit. So bring the backs of your forearms to the earth, about shoulder distance apart. For this exercise, we're gonna press the backs of the forearms and the backs of the wrists, and then all 10 fingernails into the earth. So most of us will probably have a fingernail that wants to pop up. Really try to keep all of those fingernails to the earth, wrist press down to the earth, the backs of the forearms press down to the earth. And take 3 deep breaths here. Keep pressing the forearms and the back of the wrists and the fingernails, noticing which one wants to pop up. And if this feels awkward, then you're doing it right. So don't worry about how weird it might feel. We're stretching into the forearms and the wrists in just a counter pose to the way that we usually hold our wrists, especially on the phone or computers. Take one more deep breath here. And then release those forearms. You can shake it out, you can roll it out, whatever feels best for you. You can press back. And we'll do a couple more wrist stretches throughout practice. Just take a couple more stretches, more rolls. And then find yourself back into that tabletop position. So again, setting up your foundation of the pose, the wrists underneath the shoulders, knees underneath hips, toes tucked for more stability. With your inhale, reach your right arm out in front of you and your left leg back behind you. Keeping the shoulders even, the hips even, feeling that proprioception in space. Flex through the left foot. Keep breathing into baby and feel this lengthening and this reach on the right side of your body. So we're really focusing and stretching and strengthening through the core muscles. Keep pressing into the left hand and the right knee, feeling a little bit of buoyancy as you breathe into this pose. Take one more big breath here. And keeping the left leg lifted, with your exhale, bring the right hand down to the earth, kickstand the right knee off to the side of the mat, and transfer onto that right hand, reaching the left hand up to the ceiling or overhead for more length. You can keep your leg lifted, or you can take the variation with your foot coming down to the earth. Either is a perfect place to be. Lift up through the right hip. That way we're strengthening the right side of the body and we're lengthening the left side of the body. Relax the right shoulder. Keep a small micro bend in that right elbow. Take a couple more deep breaths here. So breath is the movement of the static pose. And then begin to unwind, slowly coming back down to the earth, to that tabletop position. And start with some hip circles, starting on the right side, moving around the heel and over to the left. If there's a place where you would like to stay, where it feels really nice in this pose, please be my guest. Wherever you are, whatever you choose, take a couple more breaths. And find yourself back into that tabletop position. We're going to take the opposite side. So as you come to your next inhalation, this time the right arm reaches forward and the left arm reaches forward, right leg reaches back. Flex through the foot. Find length through the body. Keep your breath full as it can be. So feel the fullness as your belly drops toward the floor or the earth on your inhale. And with your exhale, bringing all of that strength into your center. Feel the buoyancy of the pose. Feel the strength, but also the softness. Take one more deep breath here. And exhale to bring the left hand down to the earth. The right leg stays lifted. Kickstand the left leg off to the side of the mat and start to transfer onto that left hand. Again, you have the option to reach the right arm up or overhead. You can also drop that foot down to the earth if you would prefer. Lift up through the left hip. You'll also feel like you're opening through the heart a little bit more. The left butt starts to wrap underneath. So this is a nice side oblique or side core muscle strengthener, but also an opener through the body. Breathing deep, take a few deep breaths here. Breath is the biggest part of the pose. With your next exhale, beginning to unwind, coming back down to the earth in the tabletop position. Start with your hips over on the left side, moving over the heels and to the right. Making these as slow as you would like. And again, the option to pause on any side or in any position if that feels nice. Take 2 more breaths. And eventually coming back into that tabletop position, sitting back onto your heels. If you have a block or a prop, you can use it. It's not necessary, just brings the earth a little bit closer. We'll start by bringing the right foot through. So we want the right ankle stacked underneath the right knee. The left knee comes straight down to the earth from the left hip. And that block is just under the left shoulder for some support. Energetically, as we set up this pose, we want to feel as if the right heel is shifting back energetically and the left knee is moving forward. And then squeezing in or hugging into the center line. Hands can come onto your hips. Deep breaths here. On your next exhale, start to shift your hips forward just slightly until you start to get like a little bit deeper of a stretch here, but we're not shifting the pelvis, either tucking it under or sending the tailbone back. It's just a little bit of a shift, keeping that pelvis in its neutral position. And then beginning to come out of it, and we'll do it one more time. The hands on the hips helps because you can keep the hip bones facing forward as if they're headlights. So no turning down or no turning up. So find a deep inhale, find a little bit more space through the waistline, finding length in the spine, and then exhale to shift the hips forward slightly. Breathing deep here. Find a lot of space for baby. Breathing down to baby, slowing the breath down. And then exhale to come out of this pose. And we're going to take the block with us and start to shift the hips back over the heel. The right leg straightens and the foot flexes. So the toes point up toward the ceiling and back toward you. And then shift that right hip back slightly, getting a nice deep stretch on the back of the leg. 3 breaths here. Releasing the tension from the jaw, taking the tongue off of the roof of your mouth. Keep the sit bones reaching or moving back behind you. And notice where you might be trying to avoid the pose. Soften around those hard edges. One more deep breath. And then exhale to bring a bend back into your knee. And kickstand the left leg underneath toward the right side of the body. Bring your right elbow onto the right thigh and inhale the left arm up as you kind of bend forward into this stretch. A variation of side angle pose. With your elbow on your thigh, use that elbow to keep the thigh in an outer spiral so the knee isn't caving in toward the left side of the body. Open up a little bit more. Take one more deep breath here. And then unwind, coming back to center. You can move that left leg back behind you. Hands can come down to the earth and bring that right leg back to meet the left. We're going to do it on the other side. So sitting back onto the heel. This time, the left foot moves forward. Knee is stacked on top of the ankle. The right knee is underneath the hip. And again, energetically, we're sliding the left heel back, the right knee forward and hugging the inner thighs in, just as if we were hugging a block. Find your hips with your hands. A couple of breaths here. Establishing the breath into the body, into this new position. With your next exhale, shift the hips forward slightly. This is not a big movement, but there's a point where you'll feel the sensation more on the front of the right hip. That's where we want to stay, that Goldilocks position with a bit of sensation, but no pain. Breathing into the hip flexor and the psoas. And then come out of this pose a little bit. And again, find that those headlights of your hips, find that foundation of this pose, and move forward slightly, keeping the pelvis in a neutral position. Breathing into baby, feeling that expansion from side to side and the front of the body to the back. One more deep breath here. And then releasing the pose, shifting those hips back. Hands come down to the block or to the earth. Shift the hips back. Heel comes to the mat. Foot flexes and shift that left hip back. So the hips square and there'll be a nice deep stretch on the back of the leg. Match the sensation and your breath. Soften through the face, the forehead, the jaw. Notice where you're inviting the tension in, and see if you can soften around it. The left sit bones reach back behind you. Being in these uncomfortable poses helps a lot prepare for birth. Deepen the breath. And then with your exhale, starting to bring a bend back into that left knee. This time we're kickstanding the right leg underneath to the left side, opening the hips a little bit. The left forearm comes down to the left thigh, and inhale to reach that right arm up and bend into the pose. Each side may be a little bit different. One may feel a little bit more open, and that's okay. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. Take a couple of deep breaths here. Slowing down the breath. And then beginning to unwind. Coming back to your hands and your knees. And eventually make your way into a child's pose. If you feel like baby is growing and you need a little bit more space, you can always lift your hips into a puppy pose. Forehead comes down to the earth. And allow yourself to melt here, to surrender here. Reconnecting with breath. Take a couple more deep breaths in this position. Breathing into the back of the body. So really feeling your breath on the low back, the mid back, and the upper back. As you come to your next exhale, there's no rush. Start to walk your hands over to the right side of the mat. Feel your left hip move a little bit deeper to the left, getting a nice side body stretch here. Breathing in through the left side and out through the right. Take 3 more deep breaths. With your next inhale, start to walk your hands to the center, and exhale to walk your hands to the left. You can make this pose as active or as passive as you would like, but really think about accentuating that crease in the right hip on this side. And then 3 deep breaths as you breathe in through the right side and exhale out the left. With your inhale, start to walk your hands back to center and then rising up onto your hands and your knees. From your hands and your knees, we're going to come to that spinal balance again and add a little bit more. So with your inhale, lift your right arm out in front of you and your left leg back behind you. We've been here before. Find that same extension through the center of your body. And with your exhale, slowly bring your right elbow back towards your right knee and your left knee back toward the left elbow. Inhale to find length, slowly moving with your breath. And exhale again, elbow comes back toward the right knee and the left knee towards the left elbow. Inhale to find more length, finding its expansion, and then the contraction with the exhale. Inhale to reach and expand, find more length, and release the pose, hand and knee come down to the earth. We'll do that on the other side. So finding your neutral spine, neutral position. With your inhale, lift your left arm out in front of you and your right leg back behind you. Again, establishing this foundation of the pose, finding length, and then exhale to contract. This time, the left elbow comes toward the left knee and the right elbow toward, or the right knee toward the right elbow. And expand on your inhale. See if you can slow the movement down to match the breath with your exhale, elbow to knee. Expansion and contraction. One last time. And finding length and setting the hand and the knee back down. Sitting back onto your heels, we're going to do another one of those for back of the forearm stretches for the wrists. So same as before, back of the forearms and the wrists come down to the earth, pressing all of the fingernails down to the earth. Find kind of that awkward position, keeping the shoulders right parallel to each other. Start to shift your hips back over the heels. And you'll find that sweet spot where you get a nice stretch in the shoulders as well. Breathe here, keep pressing the forearms and the back of the wrists and all 10 fingernails down to the earth. 3 more deep breaths. One more breath, you got this. And then coming back up, shaking the wrists out, rolling them out, stretching them out, whatever feels best for you. There's no right or wrong. Choose your own adventure here. Very nice. As you are ready, we will grab that block. We're going to move to a high lunge now, but we'll start it from the low lunge. So bringing the right foot forward, picking up the left knee off of the earth, pressing that right heel back, just as we did when we were on our hands and knees and in that tabletop position, pressing that heel back. There's a nice long stretch in the back of the leg on the left side. And same thing we have done on our lunges thus far in practice is that energetic feeling of the right heel shifting back and the left toes shifting forward to square the hips and squeezing in through this center line. From here, you can lift your arms up. You can also take them into a cactus position if you would like. Wherever you feel most comfortable, notice the rib cage. We want the rib cage, the bottom of the rib cage down, flush with the abdominal wall, opening up the back. It may seem like we're cutting off space for baby, but we're actually evening out this container for baby to find a nice open position in the womb. One more deep breath here. And with your exhale, opening up into a warrior two. You can widen your stance if you would like. You can also shorten your stance. If you have any kind of pubic symphysis pain, it might feel better to keep the stance shorter. Find that outer spiral in your right thigh so it's moving to the outside. Press deep into both feet. So really find four corners of both feet into the earth, and arms reach up and open. Keeping the torso in the center of your body, take 3 more breaths. Today for practice, I encourage you to close your eyes in this pose and feel the pose rather than trying to make the pose perfect or to see the pose in your body or a mirror. Feel into this pose. Deep in the breath. Breathe into baby. You can open your eyes, and with your next inhale, straighten the front leg. It should probably feel pretty good. You can walk in that left leg a little bit. Keep your arms extended and start to reach forward until you can't anymore, and then float the hands down for a triangle pose. Breathe through the shape of this pose. Your gaze can look forward. It can look up towards your hand if you feel like you need a little bit of energy today, or it can look down toward the earth if you feel like you need a little bit of grounding. One more deep breath here. And with your exhale, bring a bend back into that knee, coming back up to a warrior two. And we'll turn the left set of toes. So all 10 toes are facing forward. We're in a wide-legged forward fold. Again, pubic symphysis pain, shorten the stance. If you're not having any pain there, you can bring it into whatever you feel. Hands come onto the hips, bend slightly through the knee, send the hips back. That's finding our alignment. Deep breath in, find more length, and then exhale to slowly dive forward into this forward fold. You find your pose today. So maybe your pose, you keep a flat back and the hands on the earth. That's a good place to be. If it feels okay for you to take the entire forward bend, also move there. Pressing out through the outsides of the feet, maybe even bringing a little bit more weight into the toes so that you're getting a nice deeper stretch onto the back of the body. Take one more deep breath. And with your inhale, press into the hands. Find that flat back if you weren't there already. Extend through the spine. Soften the shoulders. Crown of your head reaches forward. Sit bones reach back. And then start to walk your hands over to frame the left foot. And we're going to do all of that on the opposite side. So again, finding your foundation, press through the back of the right or through the right heel, and then start to come up to a high crescent lunge. Arms can reach up in whatever position you choose, whether that's up toward the ceiling or coming into a cactus pose. Notice the rib cage. Keep the rib cage down and back, opening up onto the back of the body. Feel the entire breath here. Your whole body is breathing with you. With your next inhale, find a little bit more length through the spine, the waistline, maybe making a little bit more space for baby. And exhale to move into a warrior two. Find your stance. Find that outer spiral in the left thigh, torso right in the middle, and then extending the arms. Feeling not only an extension as you're reaching from the back to the front, but also a nice hugging in on the back of the body as the shoulder blades squeeze the spine. So the heart is opening. Closing the eyes. Feeling the four corners of your feet on the earth. Feeling a nice stretch, also feeling sensation. And feeling the breath expand and contract and ebb and flow. You can open your eyes, and with your next inhale, straighten that front leg. You can walk your back in a little bit if that feels best. And then reaching forward all the way until you can't anymore, and then float the hands down. Triangle pose. This is a very open pose. It's actually one of the most open in all of yoga. So if there's a place in your body that you don't feel open, find or adjust so that you do. We don't want to focus on perfection and what the pose looks like, but more what it feels like, what the intention of the pose is. Take one more deep breath here, extending and opening. And then bringing a bend back into that left knee so you can rise up to a warrior two. And turn all 10 toes to the side of the mat. Hands come onto the hips. Again, we're moving to a forward fold. Bend slightly in the knees, send the hips back and back. Keep that long spine as you bow forward. Let the crown of the head release to the earth. Shake the head out, yes and no. Press into the outsides of the feet. Lift the sit bones up a little bit more. And with your inhale, come to that long spine. Take a couple deep breaths here to recalibrate the blood pressure. Slowing down the breath. Start to walk your hands over to that left foot, bending into the left knee. We want the knee stacked on top of the left ankle, not going beyond it. So if you need to walk your feet out a little bit, please do that. And stretching into the inside of the right leg. This is Skandasana. Slowing down the breath. Inhale to come back to center and walk your hands over to the left, or sorry, to the right. The left leg straightens. So right knee over right ankle. Left leg is straightening, stretching into the sartorius muscle, the longest muscle in the body in this Skandasana. Soften here where you can soften. Notice the tension in the body. Notice where the mind might be starting to take you, whether it's moving back to the to-do lists or what's coming next, and invite it back into the breath. Inhale to come back to center, finding that long spine once again. And start to walk your feet in just slightly, a little bit wider than hip distance apart, but not super wide. And turn your toes out, heels in. Start to sink your hips down so the thighs are parallel with the earth. And then lift the arms up into a goddess pose. Deep breaths into baby. Keeping the spine long. One more deep breath here. And then stand up, reaching the arms out and the legs out, and find any movement that might feel good. I really like this star pose, just feeling this extension. But if you'd like to take a little bit of movement into the hips, if you'd like to even bring the feet closer and take some figure eights in the hips, whatever you like. And then eventually walking the feet, just heel toeing the way back up to a standing. And inhale to reach arms up. And exhale to come down into a forward fold. Inhale to lift and lengthen halfway. And exhale to bow. Plant your feet, bend your knees, rise up to standing, arms reach up. And exhale, hands into heart center. Inhale again, arms reach up, find length. Exhale to bow forward into a forward fold, slowly moving with your breath. Inhale, lift. And exhale, crown of your head reaches down. Plant your feet, bend your knees, rise up to standing. This time, keep the arms lifted. With your exhale, the left hand comes down to the thigh and start to reach over. Another side body bend. This time, keep that energy like you're squeezing a block and press down through the right foot. Find a little bit more length. The rib cage is on the back of the body. We're not thrusting forward. One more deep breath. And then inhale to come back up to center. And exhale the right hand down to the thigh or to the hip and reach over. Breathing into the left side of the body. Pressing down through the left foot. Finding a little bit more opening on the side body. And inhale to come back to center. Exhale to a forward fold. Lift and lengthen halfway. From this long spine, start to heel toe your way out again, finding that wide-legged forward fold. Crown of your head reaches forward, sit bones reach back. And then start to walk your hands around to frame your right foot. Lower the left knee down to the earth and start to walk the right ankle toward the left wrist, coming into a pigeon pose. That right foot stays flexed. The shin is about parallel to the top of the mat, or as parallel as you can get it. And then I like to keep my toes, the back toes tucked. And energetically, we're doing the same thing we have done in every lunge. So we're shifting that right knee back energetically and the left knee forward energetically. And it feels like you're coming out of the pose. Also, find that slight squeeze between the thighs. From this integrity or this foundation of the pose, keeping that energetic in the legs, that energetic boundary, then begin to bow forward. Deepen the breath here. Soften through the body. Evolve with the pose. Breathing down to the side of the hip. Find that three-dimensional breath back into the body. For these last few breaths of this pose, where can you soften? Maybe it's something that I can't see. Maybe it's being present. Start to press your hands into the mat to lift the torso up. And then begin to unwind this pose, coming into whatever pose you choose. So maybe you come back into your tabletop position and take some hip circles. Maybe it's that tabletop position and lifting that right leg and moving it in circles. If a downward dog is in your practice and that would feel nice for you today, you can also take a downward facing dog. Take about 3 breaths, just trying to get a little extra stickiness out of the hip. Beautiful. Even in this transition, staying with your breath. And then whenever you're ready, coming back to that tabletop position. And this time we'll send our right foot forward, start to walk, left foot, start to walk that left foot to the right side and starting pigeon pose on the opposite hip. Again, same foundation applies. That left foot is flexed. The left shin is parallel to the top of the mat. Energetically sliding the left knee back and the right knee forward, squeezing into the inner thighs. Feeling as if you're coming out of the pose and keeping this integrity as you bow forward any amount. You can use props here or pillows or blankets to allow yourself to surrender and soften. Deep breaths, and especially taking deep exhales. The exhale is what tells the parasympathetic nervous system to relax. It's also the best breath for the second stage of labor. So if you're breathing in for a count of 3 or 4, your exhale is a count of 5 or 6. Soften through the jaw and the forehead. Our hips are like the train station of the body, and there's a lot of stuff happening in the hips. It also tends to hold a lot of our stress and our emotions. So be aware of that. Acknowledge memories, conversations that might pop up in this pose. Allow them to come up, acknowledge them, and allow them to move out. We're not giving them any weight. We're not focusing on those things that arise. Still staying with the breath. Taking a few more breaths here. Where can you soften? Where can you surrender a little bit? As you are ready, as you feel balanced from left to right. And if you just got to a really amazing place, also feel free to stay here. But when you are ready to move, to release this pose, start to press into your hands to lift the torso up and unwind, bringing the left leg to meet the right. And again, you still have any choice. It doesn't have to be the same on the other side. You can choose this tabletop position, taking some hip circles. You can also choose to lift that left leg, taking some circles in that way, or a downward facing dog if a downward facing dog is in your practice. Take 3 or so breaths and noticing the breath during these transitions. So sometimes the transitions, not only on the mat, but off of the mat, are where we disengage with our breath. As you are ready, sitting back onto your heels and coming into either side of your seat so you can bring your feet around in front of you. And we will start with a Baddha Konasana or cobbler's pose. So bringing the soles of the feet together, knees open wide, sitting up onto the sit bones, the pubic bone tilted forward. The hands can come to the toes or to the ankles or to the shins, however you feel comfortable. Sitting up tall, finding a long spine, shoulders down and away from the ears, breathing into baby. You can stay right here. If you want to go a little bit more, you can always take a little bit of a forward fold, any amount. 3 to 5 breaths here. Find length with your inhale. Maybe go a little bit deeper with your exhale. And then with your next inhalation, coming back up to center. Stretch your right leg out in front of you. The left foot stays to the earth. Knee up toward your chest. And we're going to take an open twist here. So flexing through that right foot, again, sitting up on the sit bones, it may be a little bit more difficult here. And taking the left hand around the shin, and then we're gonna open with your exhale to the right side. Opening the heart, the right shoulder blade wraps around the spine or hugs into the spine to find a little bit more openness on the heart. And then coming back and unwinding, facing center. Cross your left ankle over the top of the right knee. And this figure four may be really nice to stay here. You might be getting a stretch. Or you can start to bring that right foot to the earth, bending into the right knee. And you can move from side to side if that feels nice. Take 2 more breaths. And then start to stretch that right leg back out if you had it lifted. And unwind the left foot. Bring both feet to the ground and take some windshield wiper. As slow as you would like, just finding the rhythm of your breath with the movement of the legs. Take one more visit to each side. And then coming back to center. This time the left leg stretches out. The right foot comes inside. And we're going to do that same twisting motion. So the right arm wraps around the right leg. You're kind of hugging it in so it's not going out. And if you need a little bit more space for baby, you can always just walk your foot up. So sitting up tall, right onto those sit bones. Inhale to lift up and lengthen. And exhale to start to open up into this twist. The left arm coming behind you for some stability. And the shoulder blade on the left side wraps in toward the spine. Looking over the left shoulder. Keep breathing into baby. And then keeping that length through the spine, unwind with your exhale. Coming back to center. This time the right ankle crosses over the left leg. Again, this figure four might be your perfect place. If you want to go a little bit more with more sensation, start to bring that left foot to the earth, bending into the left knee. And then I like to move from side to side a little bit, just bringing a little bit of a massage-like feeling into the outer hip. Keep your breath full. One more breath. And then come back to center, slide the left foot forward and unwind. Take any last pose of choice. Maybe that's those windshield wipers. Maybe there's something else calling your name. Maybe you want to take another cobbler's pose. Whatever is calling for you today. Take about 3 breaths. the end of your 3 breaths, taking some time to move into your final resting pose on your left side. If you have any props or pillows or anything, you can stack them in between the knees and the ankles. If you have a pillow you'd like to lay down on, please be my guest. And as you make your way into this final resting pose, this pose that we have prepared all of practice for, letting your body begin to rest, to find that stillness. The breath comes into its more natural state. Shavasana. Sometimes you need to move slowly so you can later move powerfully. The modern world is so fast paced that there is pressure to keep up. Setting aside what everyone else is doing and moving at your own natural speed will help you make better decisions and lift up your inner peace. Sometimes you need to move slowly so you can later move powerfully. Start to bring breath back into the body. Breathing into the back of the body and baby. Starting to bring some movement into the body by wiggling fingers or toes, rolling through wrists or ankles. And when you're ready, with the strength of your arms, pressing yourself up to a seat. Once you arrive, we'll take a moment to share with baby. Take one hand onto your heart and one hand to baby, sending a happy thought or a wish, something from your day. Also feeling the breath beneath your hands, nourishing not only your own body, but your baby's. As you are ready, bringing both hands or both palms together at your heart center, pressing your thumbs into your sternum, into your chest, your heart space, allowing the hands to be just an outward extension of your heart. And bow to yourself to acknowledge your own practice today for showing up on your mat. Thank you so much for letting me guide you. The light in me honors and recognizes the light, strength, beauty, grace, and mother in you. Namaste.